So in this week episode of JoJo, unfortunately, we saw my favorite guy get the living crap beat out of him thanks to Josuke getting very pissed off to the point where he was like blinded by rage. But as usual, this episode, to me, it was freaking good. Now, even though this right here was not really a fight between stands, but more like a slaughter because Josuke won this battle with no problem. And Rohan set himself up because he made the one mistake of dissing his hair, and you never do that. But this episode, it picked off where we left off from last week, where we have Koichi, going to Rohan's house, and we see that when we were watching him, he was busy at work, just drawing frantically. And we learn now how he was working on the last 2 pages of next week's manuscript. So this guy already finished this week to the point where he was almost done with next week. And we even see now that with the last 2 pages, he was saying how he'll be done in 20 minutes. And that right there really shocked Koichi because there's no way someone can draw that fast. But we see him now proving him wrong. And we see that, most artists, they might start off with a pencil, but Rohan was going in because he was using ink. We saw him drawing the settings and the characters, and then we see him now swinging down the ink, and that right there was adding the shadows. And we even see now where we saw a few drops falling, and you would think that right there might mess everything up, but instead we saw that the pattern on, I'm guessing, the main character's head, that right there actually, fitted perfectly as well. And this character, people should keep in mind that, that character, keep that in mind. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but I'm just going to say, don't forget the character that we saw him drawing. And so we see now that after he was done drawing, he was getting ready to steal more pages from Koichi, and we see his body opening like a book as we saw last episode. And we see now I'm trying to recall whether or not he took a page, because I think he did, but even so, before he can get to work, we saw how somebody was ringing his doorbell, and that right there was obviously Okuyasu and Josuke. And so right now we have Rohan, looking out his window, and of course he saw them, but Koichi knew that this right here could be anyone who could possibly help him. And so right now he could not control his body that well because he was in a book form, so to say. And so we see him now struggling to move across the ground as he was crawling, and we even have him falling down these stairs, and that right there was extremely dangerous. But we see now that when he made it to the door and opened it, we saw how he was normal and acting like everything was okay, because obviously he could not expose Rohan in any way that would put him at a disadvantage. And that right there, because we saw how we saw that the edit that Rohan added was that Koichi cannot attack him, and that right there I do get, but the fact how he cannot even warn someone or to get someone to even help him, that right there is where this ability, is truly frightening, because the smaller changes, they include almost every possibility, to protect the user. And so right now in his head, he was thinking, this right here was not really want to tell him, because he was telling him how he came here to watch Rohan work because he was a fan and all that. And we see now how Okuyasu and Josuke, they had no idea who this guy was. And Hazamaza also made fun of Josuke because he did not know about a certain series. So you could tell that these two were really out of the loop when it came to things like this. And so right now, when he closed the door and went back inside, we see his body opening like a book once again, and we see him now opening the door to warn them because he still needs help. But when he did that, once again his body went back to normal, and he was still acting like everything was fine when it really wasn't. And so now where he joined Rohan, we see him, getting ready to go to work, but this time he was not able to because we have Okuyasu, who actually, somehow alerted Okuyasu had alerted Rohan sensed it because he could tell that someone was like breaking it into his house, and we see now that Okuyasu had came in through the window. And so right now, Rohan, thanks to Koichi's memories, he already knew everything about Okuyasu because he was reading him literally like an open book, because he was saying how he has a conflict about his brother, and when he can't make a decision, he don't wish that his brother were here to like help him. And so right now we see that Okuyasu was like definitely wondering who this guy was, but at the same time, he was also wondering how in the world could this guy know all the stuff about him where they never met before. And then we have Koichi, who was like unable to tell him what was like happening. And then we see where we have Okuyasu, calling forth the hand, getting ready to attack Rohan. But we see now that this guy, not only is he fast with his hands when it comes to drawing, but in general, this guy has some pretty fast hands, because we saw him quickly grabbing his manga or his manuscript and holding it up. And we see now that when Okuyasu actually punched it, that right there was the biggest mistake he can do, because we saw his arm, or pretty much his whole body, like coming apart. And in Okuyasu's case, this right here was like way worse than Koichi, because his body was like super long and pretty much like in a spiral, kind of like a slinky. And so right now we see that even though right now Rohan definitely had no interest in Okuyasu, but because the powers are on him already, that he might as well use him. But at the same time, he knew that Josuke was there, and so right now we have Okuyasu and Koichi, like we have Rohan questioning them about why Josuke hiding and not coming out, because now thanks to Okuyasu going in there first, Josuke knows about his power, or at least not to look at his manuscript no matter what. And so right now, because of that, he definitely was like he definitely wasn't gonna go inside. But Okuyasu was like he can run away and go get Jotaro and the girl with the hair, because if she finds out about this, she'll be pissed. And of course, her stand hair can definitely cover a very large range, so there'll be plenty of chance for her to take out Rohan without looking at the manuscript. But at the same time, it definitely wasn't in Josuke's personality to actually abandon them, even if that might actually help them. And so right now we see that he made this edit into Okuyasu where he was saying that if Josuke runs away or gets help or like anyway, he will like commit suicide. And then we have Okuyasu, like not believing that right there was true, but we have him getting a lighter from God's nowhere, and we see him now set his own hand on fire. And so that right there was crazy. But Josuke, had no choice but to like come from behind the door and like get inside. But we see now that he had his eyes closed, and that right there was a brilliant plan, because this room was kind of small. And so right now, all he had to do was like charge for it and just go to swinging. And so we see now that when he was like doing that, running at Rohan, he was like thinking of ways to like make him open his eyes. And we see now that he grabbed these ink pen tips, and they were like really sharp, and threw them at Josuke. And we see it now hitting him in the face. Like we have some of them going into his cheeks and even one in his lip, and that right there looked very painful. But at the same time, he still has his eyes closed. And so right now he was like thinking of a way to make open his eyes. And so right now his way by doing that was insulting his hair, and that right there was the worst thing he could do, like I said earlier in this review, because when he did that, he was like blinded by rage. So even when he saw the manuscript, he was not affected by it. In fact, he actually punched through it, and that punch to Rohan's face, man, that right there was just so freaking brutal. Like we see him go flying, but of course Josuke was not done there, as we saw him just punching him over and over until he sent him flying into this bookcase where we saw a collapse. And so right now Josuke was like going around the room, pretty much destroying everything he could like get his hands on, looking for him, because even though he had took him out, he still was like blinded by his rage, so he could not see properly. And so right now, this right here was something that even Koichi didn't know, that Josuke would like get so mad when you insult his hair. And so right now, Okuyasu was like wondering why in the world does he take this so seriously. And so then we have Koichi bringing in this flashback where we see that from part 3, where Josuke was like 4 years old, like around the same time Holly got sick, Josuke was like sick as well with that fever. And so right now we see that his mother had wanted to take him to the hospital, but there was this blizzard going on and we see her car was stuck. And so then out of nowhere we have like this mysterious teen who looks exactly like Josuke now appear out of nowhere. And so right now his mother was like definitely concerned because this stranger might try something. But we see that, this guy had a very good heart because he actually wanted to help. And so we see him now placing his jacket in front of her back wheels. And so right now he was saying that, he'll push her car. And so step on the gas, but don't stop, because that way your car won't get stuck again. And so we see that, this guy was like definitely hurt. And to me, and the fact that this guy also looked like Josuke, look like Josuke now, that right there might be like some kind of foreshadowing, something I'm not really sure. But regardless, he did help her get her car free. And we see now that thanks to him, his mother was able to get him to the hospital. And so right now we learned that both of them were looking for this guy so that, he could thank him. And even though this guy did not save Josuke's life directly, because that right there was thanks to Jotaro and the rest of them taking out Dio, Josuke admired him so much that right there made him his hero. And to like show his honor and respect to this, mysterious guy, he had copied his hairstyle. So there'll be no way he would ever forgive anyone who would insult it, because that right there would be the same as insulting his hero, which he will like never forgive. And so now, going back to the present time, we have Rohan, writing something. And so, of course, they're thinking that he's up to no good. But obviously, all he was doing was just like writing down this memo before he lost consciousness, because this guy was definitely losing a lot of blood. But he was not safe at all, because Josuke actually found him, and he was not done yet. And at the end, I was like dying laughing that Rohan was like now taking a month break from his series. And that right there was like pretty much where the episode ended off. Oh, and also we did get a new opening, and I do like it, but at the same time, I'm definitely going to miss the first one. But obviously, when it comes to JoJo, I always watch the openings and ending regardless. But I do wonder, or I do find it, a little bit strange that we got a new opening, but we still have the same ending. Now, maybe that right there, will like probably change, because we still got, quite a ways to go before we reach the end of the series. Because right now we're almost reaching like the halfway point in like a couple of weeks. But of course, let me know what you guys thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And as always, you guys take it easy. And I will see you all next time.